In this video, we're going to go ahead and deploy our application to Heroku. So Heroku is a hosting service for a variety of different technologies. If you scroll down through the site, you'll see Python, Go, PHP, Node.js, Ruby, and you can use Heroku. And there is a free plan that will allow you to deploy and test your stuff, your projects, for free, and it has a decent amount of hardware against it to where we'll be able to properly test this application. So you can jump over to pricing if you are interested in getting a bigger amount of resources, and you can check all this stuff out. But the free plan is going to be perfect for what we're about to do. So go into Heroku and go ahead and create an account if you haven't already. I'm going to move this off the monitor and log into my own account. And with that logged in, I currently don't have any apps associated with this account, but that's okay. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a new app. So just click the Create New App button, and you'll want to give it a name. The name has to be uniquely global across the entirety of Heroku. You can leave it blank to get a random name, or you can put in something you want, like, let's say, Nelson-Cards, which is currently available. Of course, it won't be after I click Create App. Then you create the app, and you're now at the app dashboard. Now, it automatically sends you over to the Deploy tab, and then you can come down here and you can choose what deployment method you want to use. You can connect it directly with GitHub if you want to. You can even connect it with Dropbox, but we're going to, well, make it blow up. Come on. All right. I don't know what I did to upset it, but it doesn't like me a lot, I guess. Okay, so we're going to use the Heroku Git, and that's going to use the Heroku CLI, which is this command line interface tool that you can download and install, and it'll manage all the stuff, the Heroku-y stuff for you. And it's a great, really simple little tool that hooks into Git, whatever installation of Git you have installed on your system, and interacts with Heroku that way. So definitely make sure you have Git installed. And then go ahead and download and install the Heroku CLI. So you'll see installation for Linux, Windows, and OS X. And then you just follow the instructions. So it wants us to create a new Git repository. Well, I already have a Git repository. As I've been developing this or putting the series together, I've been committing after every single video. And I already have the Git repository all set up and ready to go. So if you don't have a Git repository, you're going to want to create a Git repository for your project and commit all of your files to that repository. Then what you want to do is, again, just following the instructions. Open up your command prompt or terminal and just follow the commands. You'll have to Heroku login the first time you use it. I've already logged in. And then in the directory that your Git repository exists, you simply say Heroku, git:/remote -a for add, and then the name of your project, which is Nelson-Cards in this case, in my case anyway. And then go ahead and hit enter. And now it sets the Git remote properly, and it'll make sure that all the authentication is going to work, all the SSH keys and all that fun stuff. If it fails to do that, you might have to set up SSH keys manually, which you can do underneath your account settings. Basically the same sort of process that you'd use for committing to GitHub or Bitbucket. And now it's pretty much done. Now, there are a couple things we have to do on the project itself before we can properly deploy it. And that is, we need to put a file inside of our project that will tell Heroku how we want to have it started up. What web server do we want to use? What do we want to execute? And so on. Then we also have to add something to our package.json file. Because so far, we have been using, in the Cards application, we have been using the development server and WebPack in order to serve out our assets. But we need to have a build step, and we've already written the build step, but we need to tell Heroku that every time we push a change to our repository, we want it to go ahead and perform the compilation of the assets, build our packages, build our server, and so on. So let's fix the first one first, or the first problem first, and we can do that by creating what's called a proc file. And the proc file is just a special file that tells Heroku how our application needs to be ran. And so I'm going to say web : node space server.js. And this just tells Heroku, when you start this project, I want you to use a node server or a node application, a node runtime on our server.js file. Then to make sure that our things get built properly, I have to go into my package.json, and inside my scripts, I need to first make sure that, okay, so we have our scripts, we have our test and our start, but I have to do, add in another special script called post install. So post install, which is ran after the package is installed, and I'm going to say gulp build. And so what post install will do is when Heroku downloads our app, it's going to do an npm install. And now whenever we do an npm install, after all the node packages are pulled down, it'll run gulp build. And with those changes, we should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into SmartGit and commit those changes. Then I'm going to go ahead and push it to Heroku. So we can come in here. I can go ahead and stage these changes, commit them. I guess this would be 06.01 deployment. And I'm going to commit. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push, but I'm going to push to the, well, it's going to push to master. I don't know if it's picked up on the fact that I have another remote yet. Oh, push to, there we go. I'm going to push to Heroku. And then say push. And now it's going to push to Heroku. So it's going to send all this data up there. Heroku is going to receive the application. It's going to run an npm install. After the npm install, it's going to run the gulp build. And then after that, it's going to launch the application. And hopefully, if everything has been written correctly, this should work. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while this is working. If you did a git push, I should have done a git push in my command prompt, because what'll happen is Heroku will send back data giving you a log of what it's doing, like what it's installing and so on. And we're not going to be able to see that here because SmartGit's not going to show me that output. So that's okay. I'll just pause the video, and once it's done, we'll take a look at what happened. All right, and we're back. So I got the output from Heroku, and it's saying, it looks like there's an error somewhere. You can see all the stuff that it's doing. Node.js app detected, blah, 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 creating runtime environment. But you see that down here, it's doing the npm install, but then it's saying throw new reference error, plugin unknown plugin React hot loader / Babel specified in blah, blah, blah. Oh, I know what's wrong with this. Okay, so the problem is that I have a dev dependency on React hot loader, but even in a production build, I'm still adding it to my Babel RC. What I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to go ahead and move React hot loader from a dev dependency to a normal dependency. Because what will happen is Heroku won't, when it does the npm install, it's not going to install any of the dev dependencies. It's only going to install these dependencies. But since we're performing the build on Heroku itself, as opposed to performing it locally, we have to make sure that all of our build tools are added as normal dependencies. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to commit from Visual Studio Code. Then I'm going to push through the command prompt. And what was the 0601? 0601 deployment. I'll just leave the same thing. Now I'm going to open up my command prompt, and I'm going to push. So the command is simply, assuming you have Git installed and accessible globally, the command is simply git push Heroku master. So git push followed by the remote name followed by the branch. And now we get to see all of the output from Heroku as it attempts to build our package. So now it's installing the node modules. Blah, blah, blah. I'll pause the video during this as well. And now we're running into an error saying it can't find the Webpack dev server. It looks like I'm requiring in Webpack dev server somewhere that I shouldn't. Okay, so what's going wrong here is I have the Webpack dev server, but I do not want to add that to a dependency because the Webpack dev server is kind of a heavy package. So what I'm going to do is instead of importing Webpack dev server all the way up here, I'm going to remove this import, and then I'm going to scroll down to where it's used, and I'm going to require it right here. I'm going to say const webpack dev server equals require webpack dev server. So now the only time that this is required in is if we are actually performing a watch client, which we'd only ever do in development and not production. So let's go ahead and commit again. And get that committed. And now let's try to push again. Go ahead and expand this. And it should start getting faster as it caches all the packages that are installed and caches the versions of Node and NPM that are installed as well. But just like I did before, I'll pause during this process. And we're done. I did see some warnings about ESLint. There were some no unused vars somewhere. I don't know where that was. It scrolled by so quickly. It was like game something. But I'm not seeing it in code. I'll figure it out later. It's not a big deal. The point is it's now deployed. So now I can come back here, and if I reload, I wonder if it'll show me anything different now that it's deployed. No, it doesn't. So I can go to Overview, and I can see my build. I can see my build succeeded. I can actually view the build log if I wanted to, and that'll actually tell me where those unused vars were. Observable is defined never used and stores user. Behavior subject isn't used. Behavior subject isn't used, and Lodash isn't used. But I don't care. Well, I do care, but we should get going. So now I should be able to hit Open App and check that out. It's now online. And if I come over here and view source, notice how, because it's a production build, the CSS got extracted out of the package, and then the build app and build vendor packages are both minified, as you can see. And they're minified, and they're considerably smaller than they would be otherwise. So if I go ahead and duplicate this, log in with player 1, create game, log in with player 2, join game, I should be able to start the game. And so there seems to be an error with starting the game. So the way that you would diagnose this is you would hop on over, and there should be the activity logs, or sorry, the under more we have view logs, and we should be able to see what's going on here. So create the game, join the game, and hit that, and I got an error. This.players.includes is not a function. So it seems that there's a version difference between the version of Node that I'm using locally and the version that I'm using on Heroku. So the way that I'm going to fix this, I completely forgot about this. The way that I'm going to fix this, and again, I'll leave this in the video just because it's important to be able to know how to diagnose issues. The error specifically is includes is not a function. Includes is a new function in a later version of of JavaScript. So we need to make sure that we are on a later version of NPM and Node. So what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to add another property next to scripts. Well, it doesn't matter really where it is. And I'm going to say engines, and I'm going to set engines to have a node of 6.3.x. So I'm going to force the node version to be 6.3x, which will be a high enough version that the feature that I'm requiring will exist. So now we'll do 0601 deployment question mark. Now we'll go ahead and we will do, I can stop this actually. We're going to go ahead and do another push, and I'll be back in a moment here. Well, you can actually see it did now grab the 6.3x node version, so this should work this time. Famous last words, right? And there we go. We're now deployed, hopefully for the final time. So now let's hop on over back to our application. Let's reload, and then we'll log in with player 1, and then we'll log in with player 2, and then we'll start the game, and it has started. So now I can go ahead and select the card, select the winner, and play the game. So yeah, I mean, that's really about it. There's not a whole lot left to say. The only other thing that you might be interested in is if you have a domain and would like to set this up, what you would do is create a CNAME record in your domain zone file and point it to this full domain. And then you'd be able to have your own custom domain instead of having to use the herokuapp.com parent domain. But with that, guys, I think that wraps everything up. So that's how we do deployment. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video.